This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, I'm shocked I tell you. You mean there's other things you can do with dirt other than plant corn and soybeans in? Did I miss the memo? And is it a cornucopia or a co-op bucopia? And you dance bovinely, Miss Elsie. All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. It's April 6th. Do you know where your farmer is? I don't want to be the one to break this to you, but he or she is probably riding a planter right about now. The planting dam is broken, and I imagine we'll see huge sections of our area being worked on in the next couple of weeks. There was a frost scare last night. I hope anyone who planted early isn't regretting it now. But given the last couple of weeks, I can't see anyone slowing down now. So with the grain guys out riding the rows, this week we're talking to folks about things that don't require a 48-row planter. Today, Kim Ross from Ember Valley Farms is with me, and Kim runs a CSA. Kim, what is a CSA?
Well, Fred, a CSA is a community-supported agriculture system that allows our customers to buy a certain share of produce, and they pick up a share of organic, local produce that was picked usually the day before every week. So.
Okay, so you're continually growing produce to deliver every week. How do you plan this out?
Well, we start in the fall, and we have about 2.5 acres, and we start with our fall garlic and getting ready for the next season. And we start things in the greenhouse very early, and right now is prime go season for us, planting season. But we just keep going. We do a very intensive farm management system where we are continually putting crop after crop in.
Okay, so you do multiple crops during the course of the season. Okay, so you have to keep very careful records as to how long it takes for certain crops to mature.
I do. We are very careful to rotate, especially your tomatoes and potatoes and certain crops, usually a 3-year rotation. And
okay, and you know, I never have a problem with tomatoes. When they bloom, I tend to get a lot of them for free. What sort of stuff do you grow, and do your members participate in helping decide what you can grow?
Well, we definitely take their opinion and into consideration, and tomatoes will always be the number one. Everybody wants tomatoes and sweet corn, so we try to do as much of that as possible, but we start out with your spring lettuces and greens and broccoli, and we follow into your summer crops, your tomatoes and peppers and eggplant and corn, right into the fall, so right into your pumpkins and gourds.
Now, I've done just a little bit of gardening, and you know, I'm never sure what's going to show up when. You know, not to mention, you know, you get a wet spring or a stretch of dryness, and how do you work around the weather in your planning?
Well, you do the best you can, and that's part of the CSA is our customers have to kind of work with us and understand that there's a lot of challenges with weather and insects when it comes to farming, and we just do the best we can.
You know, Mother Nature will out.
It definitely will.
Okay,
definitely will.
So you run this as a business, and how do you set this up? How do you find your members? How do you get investment? How do you run the business of the CSA?
Well, you know, we did several years at the farmer's market, and this was just the next step after we grew and grew, and we took the leap to do this for me to do this full time, and the customers kind of found us. We set up a website, emberallvalleyfarm.com, and had a lot of interest from that. I hung up some flyers, and that first year we did a little bit of marketing and advertising, and the second year I did very little. People found us, and this year's the same. We fill up fast.
So how many shares do you have for 2.5 acres?
Well, we've increased. So this year, we've previously taken around 25. This year we'll take 40, so we are always getting bigger.
So you have 40 members. They get a share of whatever you produce each week, okay? And they come and pick it up?
They do. I meet them in town, and they pick it up. I go to Charleston twice a week and Mattoon once a week,
Okay.
and give them a share of whatever is available at that time.
So
several weeks of maybe
if
lettuce
you don't like
and greens.
eggplant, tough beans.
Right, if you don't, but you know, people always find a home for it somewhere, or they can trade. But we always have plenty that there's other things, and a lot of people can try it. You know, they haven't. These are a lot of different things they haven't tried before.
Okay.
So
Now you said you started out at the farmers markets. How did you know? What are the pros and cons between selling produce in the farmers market and setting up a CSA?
well, the farmers market, I love the farmers market. We did it for several, and we still do the farmers market when we have a great crop. But you get to meet with people and mingle, but you can spend all day picking and harvesting and get up at 4 a.m. to go to the farmer's market and then get rained out. So, and come home with nothing but all of your produce.
All your produce
So-
and a sopping wet t-shirt.
Right. So the CSA is, you know, it's great because I know my customers are going to meet me rain or shine, that produce is finding a good home, and it's a guarantee.
So it's sort of a risk management program for you.
It is, because farming's a risky business.
Right.
Yeah,
So you have a set monetary amount at the end of the year to work with for all your
Right.
seeds and all
Right.
the water and anything
Right.
else.
Right.
And they're taking the risk on what shows up, correct?
They are.
Okay. So what's been your members' reaction to this sort of project?
Well, people are really looking for local, you know, especially we're all organic, so especially local organic produce. So, you know, people who love to cook and are looking for that food, it's just phenomenal. They love what we do, and they can't get enough of it, and it's a huge demand.
Okay. So what's your favorite dish to prepare out of the stuff you make?
On the spot. I would say probably fresh salsas right out of the garden.
Okay.
You know, we don't cook a lot. We eat a lot of, in the summertime, we eat a lot of raw food,
Okay.
you know, right out of the garden during salad season, but especially grilled zucchini with garlic.
Ooh.
All that we grow a huge variety of summer squash, and on the grill.
So you grow the zucchini, you've grown the garlic, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we make a lot of different, you know, just salads and raw foods, and
Now
it's great.
you mentioned one of the benefits is that you get to stay home. Talk a little bit about that. You worked full-time and then you did this.
I did. I always worked full time, and you know, we took this leap in 2010 where I stayed home and did this, and it allows me to stay home. I sort of have the winters; they're slower. I still work. You know, I have a lot of things to do, but
We won't tell anybody.
right. But I get to stay home and be a full-time mom for the winter time.
Okay.
But as soon as March hits, I'm going full time definitely until about October.
Well, thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. Look forward. Probably would like to have you come back and talk about the season and come this fall.
Great.
So
All right,
thank you very
thanks
much.
for having me.
From ethanol supporting our armed forces to forces of nature not necessarily supporting us, here with the news is Monica Becker. Monica?
I'm Monica Becker. This winter and spring has been one of the warmest ever. In fact, since our last freeze was on March 11th, we have so far had the earliest date of the last freeze in central Illinois since 1945 and 1946. It doesn't mean that a dreaded freezing couldn't still sneak up on us. I'm sure you're all still checking the long range. The Illinois Department of Ag is reporting as of April 2nd, 5% of Illinois corn has been planted. And since this is the first day of crop insurance corn, that dust cloud you see in the distance is our friends, the grain farmers, going to town through their fields. But what would farming be without a full range of things to worry about? Mike Gray, a U of I entomologist, warns that early planting might mean early pests. He has seen strong black cutworm moths already in Illinois. Early corn is often at risk for this pest. Olin Galbraith of the Indiana Crop Improvement Association warns that if planted fields get too much water later, or if a frost were to happen, additional seed for replanting might not be available. He cites seed corn yields were down 20 to 30%, and South American production this winter has not met expectations. So let's hope what you're planting grows. And what about that nitrogen that many farmers spread during the long, warm fall? Many farmers who applied anhydrous ammonia last fall are concerned that they might have lost some of their nitrogen. According to U of I crop science professor Fabian Fernandez, when anhydrous is applied, it reacts to soil water to convert to ammonium. If this happens, the nitrogen is held in the soil and cannot be leached out. Except it was so warm that the bacterium that mediates the nitrification works best in warmer temperatures and when the soil isn't saturated with water. Sounds familiar? Of course, so much depends on the type of nitrogen a farmer applied and local conditions. Check with your local Ag Extension office if you have questions. And did you till too much? The Purdue Extension has cautioned farmers from working their ground too much. Tony Vinn says that there is nothing wrong with early tillage, but producers should think ahead and not increase the number of passes they make across their fields. Again, it depends on soil type, the amount of water your field has seen, and the type of planting practice you use. And the EPA says E15 is A-OK. The Environmental Protection Agency has approved the first application for registration of ethanol for use in making gasoline that contains up to 15% ethanol, known as E15. There are federal funds currently to help fund fuel station owners to install over 10,000 blender pumps over the next 5 years. So we might see it here sooner than later. If you really want to find a station, you might have to drive to Hawaii. The Navy has just announced that it is opening 3 ethanol 85 fueling stations for the Navy's fleet of flex fuel vehicles at the Joint Base in Pearl Harbor. So Fred, can I do a remote there? I'm Monica Becker. Thanks for watching.
Well, spring has sprung, and since farmers are out there kicking up a lot of dust, I thought maybe time for us to start thinking about kicking up some dust in our backyards. With me today is Larry Shobe. He's the grounds gardener for Eastern Illinois University. And we see him around campus, hands deep into soil, moving flowers, pruning trees, doing all sorts of stuff. And if there's one person on campus who knows about gardening, he's the man. Now, Larry, my wife, is after me, says we need to get started gardening. What should we do to prepare?
Well, probably the best thing that we should all do is to make sure that our tools are sharp and ready to go as the season begins.
Okay, so my tools are in my shed. I dig them on out. We can go, right?
Well, it's best that you take either a hand tool and sharpen them, or put them in a grinder.
Okay.
And
so a grinder, a Dremel tool, a sharp file.
a sharp file will work just
Why is
fine
that?
for some tools. It makes your work so much easier, Fred.
Okay, I'm all for easy.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, so we get the tools, we get them sharpened, clean them off, right? Because you don't want any old disease that may have been hanging around over the fall, right? Okay, so then we have our tools ready. What do we do next?
The first thing in the spring, for those of us that have a lot of perennials and shrubs and flowers of that nature, is to clean them up.
Okay.
Take your hostas, for example. Those need to have the old stems cleaned out of them. That's what we call deadheading, taking the old flower stems out and the old leaves and things and raking them up, getting rid of them.
Okay, so it's a lot of the busy work, pulling the dead leaves around the daylilies.
Right.
Pruning bushes, or what about mums and that sort of things? You know?
Our biggest problem this past fall was we were not able to do a lot of the spring, or the fall cleaning rather, that we would normally do because it started raining as winter came on, and then it rained all winter long. We had a mild winter, and so now we're forced to do all that work that half of it we might have had cleaned up in the fall.
So when you mention cleaning up hostas, what are you talking about?
Well, they have old dead stems in them from last
Okay.
year. The flower stems often remain standing. They've faded, they look trashy, and the leaves, and just clean those off so that when the new leaves come up, they really
Okay, so you generally
show
go around,
themselves
you
very
go
well.
around the yard and your garden and you start cleaning up that stuff that looks dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so we've cleaned up the stuff on the ground. What's deadheading? You mentioned that a bit ago.
Okay, deadheading is just taking those flower
Okay,
stems
so it's
off.
not getting your Grateful Dead CDs out and listening while you're doing it.
Even the lilacs, if your lilacs are small enough, you like to take those old blossoms out because they take away from the new blossoms in the spring tremendously. When they get to be huge, you no longer can reach them.
Okay.
But when they're small, it makes your shrubs look a lot nicer.
Right.
The other big problem that we had last year was with the cicadas.
Oh, yeah.
And the cicadas created so much damage in our trees and
Especially when I
shrubs.
sleep.
And a lot of branches as such have been bent.
You brought an
And
example here. Let's see
Okay.
this.
The cicadas, the females would cut slits in the undersides of the leaf, underside of it. Now they didn't do it on top, and so these have healed over as such.
Oh,
They had
okay.
all summer, the late summer to heal over. But a lot of them began to break. And the wind broke so many, and that's the reason you see so many dead twigs
Okay.
in trees and shrubs now in the spring.
So is this an
And so-
example? I'll hold it up to this camera.
Okay.
Is this an example? Are they laying their eggs here, or are they just?
They've
feeding?
already laid them, and the branches that have fallen on the ground, those eggs have hatched and gone down in the ground. Now, some of the stems were strong enough that they healed over instead. And if it's strong, it will make it. Now, had we had ice this winter, we'll turn this over, and this would have drooped, and it would have broken very easily, as so many of them did in the wind anyway.
Okay, so this is nature's way of cleaning up this problem, but
It is.
we had a mild winter, so we have to do it.
But some of our trees and shrubs have nearly every branch has been damaged by the cicadas. Others, they didn't bother some trees and didn't damage a lot of them to the extent that they did. Pussy willows or dogwoods were hit real hard, and this happens to be a star magnolia.
Oh,
So if you have these damaged branches, then it's wise to cut them now. And even if they look like they're damaged but healed over some, they may still break in the windstorms.
so okay.
So what I do, I cut as much of that damaged, especially if it's a small shrub and you can clean up the entire thing, or a small tree. Then I go in and I cut with my pruners very close to that, back
Back
to
bit,
a
the
good
branch.
stem, a good stem that hasn't been damaged, and I cut that close like that, and
Voila.
it'll heal over.
Very good.
And sometimes you want to maybe cut another branch, and so to even it up a bit, and
see
then
what-
they'll both grow.
I see why you want your
At the
tools
same-
sharp at that point.
Right.
Okay, so one of my evil nemesis in my yard are the spring weeds. Okay, the grass is
Okay.
finally looking good, but in between all that grass is a lot of other stuff that's doing really well too. What can we do for spring weeds in our gardens and our lawns, that sort of thing?
When you're dealing with flower beds that the plants are close together, you cannot spray. So you need a very sharp hoe to get in there,
Right.
or sometimes a spade to get the dandelions or
Right.
something, and take them out individually like that.
I was
But
afraid you were going
can-
to say that.
But you can use broadleaf killers in, say, the lawn.
Right, right.
That kind of thing.
I like chemical
get some-
warfare, but I'll go hand to hand if I need to. Well, Larry, we'll have you back. There's more things growing than more things growing that I don't have a clue about. So
Okay.
we'll have you back this
Okay.
summer, okay?
It's been
Thank
my
you very
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
Well, March came in like a lamb and went out like a month-old lamb. Here to tell us about the weather that made up March is Cameron Craig with this week's Under the Four River Skies.
What can I say? 2012 has been an interesting year for climate. Spring came in the first week of February, and then summer slammed in during the second full week of March, with record-breaking temperatures. This year has been a different year of climate compared to last year's climate of the same period. To set the story in motion, let's have a look at March last year. March 2011 had an average temperature of 45.2 degrees, which was 3 degrees above normal. The total precipitation was 2.82 inches, putting it 66 hundredths below the 30-year average. Are you ready? March 2012 had an average temperature of 59.1 degrees, putting it 16.9 degrees above the 30-year average. Until this March, the warmest March on record was set in 1946 with an average temperature of 54.6 degrees. Following the end of February, maximum temperatures began in the 60s and then dropped into the upper 30s March 4th through the 5th. On the 6th, the temperatures skyrocketed into the upper 60s through the 9th and dipped briefly into the upper 50s on the 10th. Daytime highs then rose gradually from the mid-60s to the low 80s March 11th through the 13th, and then hovered between the upper 70s to mid-80s the 14th through the 22nd. It was during this period that we broke 6 records in Charleston. The record on the 14th was set in 2007 at 78 degrees. We broke that record with 81 degrees. The temperature tied on the 15th. The maximum temperature did not break the 1945 record on the 16th, but broke the 1940 record on the 17th by 5 degrees. The 18th maximum of 80 degrees broke the 1903 record and barely broke the 1907 record of 81 degrees on the 19th. The main reason behind these record-breaking temperatures was due to a persistent ridge that remained over the eastern half of the United States. Wind flow ahead of the upper-level trough continued to push warm, moist air into the Midwest, breaking record number of records. These temperatures were more June-like than mid-March temperatures. The daily average highs for March are typically in the lower 50s, with daily low temperatures in the upper 30s throughout the Midwest. This March, the temperatures were between 20 and 30 degrees above the daily average highs. Geographically, these temperatures are typical for Floridian March conditions. As far as precipitation for this March, we were below average by 1.97 inches. We did see a tenth of an inch of snow on the 5th, but it quickly disappeared. The 5th of March was possibly the last snow event for the winter of 2012. I say possibly the last snow event because it is highly possible that we could see a minor snow event in April or even May. Very warm temperatures do not usually stick around for too long, especially between March and May. In fact, following the March summer-like temperatures, April temperatures began to decrease towards the 30-year daily normal. For this weekend and the next 6 to 10 days, temperatures will sit slightly below average due to an upper-level trough that will sit over the eastern third of the United States. Precipitation is expected to be slightly above the average for the next week, which is good compared to last April when we received 6 inches of rain above the 30-year average. As long as precipitation amounts hover around the 30-year average for the month, I bet farmers will be extremely happy.
No escaping penguins, no crop-stealing monkeys. This week, it's cows. In Fort Shaw, Montana, a beef cow named Harley delivered triplets. So what do you say? Well, the odds of a cow having triplets naturally without fertility is very rare. We're talking lotto rare. We're talking 1 in 420,000 rare. The farmer was going by when she noticed that Harley did not stand up after delivering her new calf, which was what most cows do. So she went to explore, and she saw that there was already another calf standing nearby, next to a smaller calf, and Harley was still in labor. Well, initially there was some confusion as to whether or not Harley was responsible for all 3 calves, but Harley knew her calves, and the calves knew their mother. 2 months later, Harley and Annabelle and Belle and Seabelle are all doing fine. And you've heard the expression, we'll dance until the cows come home. Well, how about we'll be home until the cows stop dancing? This video is from an English farmer's cows being released into the pasture for the first time this spring. Did I just see one doing the funky chicken? Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.